written upon the star by Latin words, Christ was born from the Virgin Mary. You can see the letters?
Yeah. So, in your tradition, the Holy Family consists of Jesus and his parents, Mary and Joseph. What about when the Bible tells us about Jesus having brothers? Do you acknowledge that Jesus had brothers and sisters?
You know, Saint Joseph was married before Virgin Mary. Virgin Mary, she get pregnant from the Holy Spirit.
So Joseph had children before he married Mary,
Yes.
and therefore when the New Testament talks about Jesus having brothers, they're really half-brothers.
Yes.
They're not his full brothers.
Yes, of course.
But they are his brothers
Yes.
through Joseph.
Yes.
This theory, that Jesus' family were only half-brothers and sisters, the sons and daughters of Joseph from a previous marriage, is mostly based on a 2nd century non-biblical Christian text called the Gospel of James. It portrays Joseph as an aging widower, chosen by the chief priest of the temple to look after the 14-year-old Virgin Mary.
There's a suggestion that after the birth of Jesus, Mary had children. Do you believe Mary had children?
No, never. No,
It's impossible.
no. Virgin Mary, it was virgin during the birth, before the birth, and after the birth.
So she stayed a perpetual virgin.
Of course.
The Gospel of James goes to incredible lengths to prove Mary's perpetual virginity.
Salome said, "As the Lord my God lives, unless I thrust in my finger and investigate her parts, I will not believe that a virgin has given birth." Then Salome went in, and the midwife said, "Mary, show yourself, for a small test concerning you is about to take place." And Salome inserted her finger into her body and cried out, "Woe is me for my unbelief."
Amazingly, in the 5th century, the Gospel of James was condemned as heresy.
Saint Joseph, he didn't sleep with her, never, never, never.
So the Christian traditions who believe that they did have children, you would say that they're wrong.
Yes, of course.
Will God judge them for that?
Maybe. Watch your hands.
It's not just the Greek Orthodox Church that has a problem with Jesus' blood family. Whilst I was in Bethlehem, I bumped into some members of the Ethiopian Church, including their Archbishop, Abba Melchizedek.
A pleasure to meet you. Pleasure to meet you. I was wondering if you could tell me how, in your tradition, you understand the parts of the New Testament where Jesus is said to have brothers. So
We don't believe that.
you don't believe that he had any brothers?
No.
No.
Jesus himself said to his disciples, "My brothers," like that is all.
That's it.
So
So
all the followers of Jesus Christ are his brothers. No, we believe Jesus is the Son of God.
thank you. God bless you. God bless you.
1600 years ago, the first heresy the early church faced questioned Jesus' divinity. It caused a bloody struggle that ended in Jesus being declared the Son of God.
The more Jesus is exalted and his mother, the more that the family are simply ignored. They're just dropped. They're just part of the picture, but not in any real sense. Jesus isn't really given a proper family, and so they're just simply seen as stepbrothers or cousins.
Excuse me. What are these made of?
These are made out of the olive wood.
Yeah.
It's all hand carved.
Yeah. Now tell me who the characters are in the nativity scene.
Now you have the Holy Family.
Yep.
Mary.
The Holy Family, Mary, Joseph,
And the baby.
and the baby.
The earliest texts of the New Testament say absolutely nothing about Mary's virginity. In fact, Paul's letter to the Galatians describes Jesus as being born of a woman, not a virgin.
One of the interesting things about the New Testament is that the earliest passages don't seem to know anything at all about the virgin birth. Paul never mentions it at all, and the earliest gospel, Mark, doesn't mention it either. Even John's gospel, which has a fairly exalted picture of Mary, doesn't seem to know anything about the virgin birth. The traditions are simply in Luke's gospel and Matthew's gospel. The whole point is to show that Jesus is truly the Son of God.
See how nice
And the clearest way that you can do that, metaphorically and using picture language, is to say that Mary was a virgin.
Do you do Jesus' family? Mary, Joseph, Jesus, James, Jude, Salome, and so you've only got part of the Holy Family. You haven't got the full family of Mary and Joseph.
No, but if you want, we can do it for you.
You can do that for me.
Because it's our work.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Of all the churches, the Roman Catholic has done the most to erase all mention of Jesus' real blood family. 1600 years ago, one of its most revered theologians, Jerome, devised another theory.
He claimed that Joseph had a brother, and this brother was married to somebody also called Mary, and it's their children who are described in the New Testament as the brothers and sisters of Christ. A very clever theory, and one that helped to demote the brothers and sisters of Christ to nothing more than cousins.
So according to the Roman Catholic Church, not only was Mary not the mother of Jesus' brothers and sisters, but Joseph wasn't their father either.
In fact, the only reason why they needed Joseph was for his pedigree, a genealogy that fulfilled the prophecy that the Messiah would come from the house of David, Israel's ancient king. Up here on the walls are the remains of a mosaic that's over 1,000 years old. It depicts Jesus' genealogy going back 1,000 years directly to the house of David.
The only problem is that most scholars now agree these genealogies were created by the gospel writers to fit the new church's emerging theology. Bethlehem has one of the earliest shrines dedicated to the Virgin Mary, a cave where she's supposed to have lived for a time with Jesus.
The tradition here is that shortly after the birth of Jesus, the Holy Family came here where the Virgin was nursing the baby for some time. According to the tradition, we believe that some drops of her milk fell here and turned the grotto into the relic of the Virgin's milk. The name of this church is the Milk Grotto.
The traditional image of Jesus' mother as the Virgin Mary has been completely created by the church. Her